And you know, there are new and creative ways of dealing with individuals when it comes to sexual assault that don't necessarily rely on the police. And I would direct you to are you familiar with the organization Insight, Women of Color Against Violence? Go to that website and you'll see some very interesting stories about ways in which women of color have addressed violence, gender violence, without relying on the state, without relying on the police. But thank you so much for that question.
On the last question, in solving or trying to deal with creatively the police violence as it's related to the structure of racism, I would like to say and point out that in the 1960s, or the protest with the Black Panther Party, one of the things that we shifted to, you know, Malcolm X used to say the ballot or the bullet. But when you looked at it real hard, what he was getting at is that we need that balance. And somehow or another, we got to use that ballot and use some political positions to help change things. That was what he was saying. What I did with the Black Panther Party before I went to jail, before they put me in jail, was I initiated a program called Community Control of Police. Now, this is one of the things that we literally did. We got a good research committee, and we put together to get signatures for a referendum to the ballot in the city of Richmond, California, in the city of Berkeley, California, in the city of Oakland, California, and in the city of San Francisco, California. And what we did with this community control of police ballot measure concept is when we talk about power to the people, we was talking about the police tend to investigate themselves, you know what I mean? That is not a people's empowerment. In other words, how do we evolve more people empowerment to affect and deal with the institutionalized framework itself, police departments, okay? Now, so we came up with this, that instead of an appointed police chief appointed by the mayor or something and considered by your city council, that's one thing. That's political cronies, you see what I mean, for appointing whoever, etc. What we recommended in our referendum, we wanted 3 duly elected commissioners, 3 police commissioners rather than a police chief. And with that referendum, we also wanted to elect 3 different boards. In each city, 3 different boards. We call them community control of police investigative boards. All right? Meaning that we break the city up demographically, politically, etc. So many precincts and whatever, and so many, etc. We will elect a board, not less than 5 odd members up to 11 odd members of each board. Now they would be duly elected from the community, people from the community. They would have lawyers, they would have access to investigate anything or any police brutality, what have you, etc. And that way we would have much more people input into what would go down. We only got it on the Berkeley ballot. We didn't make it on the Richmond ballot and get enough signatures, nor the San Francisco ballot, nor the Oakland ballot. But we did get it on the ballot in Berkeley. And we did run it. Duly elected 3 commissioners from the community rather than a police chief appointed by some executive office in the city council. And with 3 police chiefs, they would serve 6 years each, elected in odd years, what have you, etc. And in any board, in any community police review board, you got 3 police review boards. In any one of those investigations, you know, undue force by police, right or wrong, etc. And through their investigation, I mean, everything from all of the things that they called for investigation in the Brown case, and you could never find out any information. But the point I'm getting at, then we come down to what? A recommendation. They say, we recommend that this police be fired, we recommend that this police be charged, we recommend that this police be done. And with an agreement of two of the duly elected commissioners, then that new law would allow a greater input, what we call greater community control of police department. Now, that was in the 1960s. You can get creative with this kind of stuff. And another level of this time, this period. You see what I'm getting at? And that's the kind of thing that's got to happen. So what you're doing with a measure to the ballot like that in a city, etc., you know what I mean? You're making a law. It's legislation, but it's people's legislation. You got greater input because you got people voting for this kind of thing. It's the same with the environment in a lot of cases in California that's going on. You know what I mean? There are measures that goes to the ballot what cheap politicians are trying to get over. But you can put people's measures to the ballot where you educate the people and put these measures on the ballot. And this is you got to make a movement out of this kind of activity. You see what I mean? All across the country, all these different cities about this kind of activity. You know, not just a police review board. I mean, they got a review board they have in Oakland, California, but they have no teeth. All they can do is say, well, we didn't like this, we didn't like that. I'm talking about a measure that's spelled out, get you a great research committee, you got the people, etc., and they have teeth. They have teeth in terms of the rights to investigate, the right to subpoena, the right to, etc., to really investigate and come down with a recommendation against these police. You see, you have to understand something. The brother was talking about people and politicians ain't doing nothing. One thing for sure, the avaricious corporate money picture, let's focus more particularly on the Koch brothers and the billionaire club. That billionaire club. You have to understand this avaricious corporate monopoly capitalistic system in that context of what it's doing today. These guys here have gotten state level laws slid in to their politicians, to their Tea Party, and to their support of their right-wing Republicans. Doing everything from repressing the vote to doing everything they can to get complete control. To get complete control legislatively from the federal level down to the state level, etc. They're the ones that vote in these darn laws of open carry guns. They're the ones that vote in these laws for Zimmerman to go out and shoot and kill and get away with murdering our young black men and women in our community, etc., etc. They're the ones, so it is imperative that you understand this. Those legislative seats are power seats. And yeah, you're going to have politicians that ain't going to do nothing, but you're going to find some. When we started out in the Black Panther Party, I'll never forget it, Ron Dillon was getting ready to run for Berkeley City Council. We had just left a meeting, and you and I was talking about the need to go out and start patrolling police, and a big meeting that us young black students had had up around University of California, etc. And then Ron came out and said, "You guys are gonna patrol the police?" Said, "We think that's a tactic that we can get to we can get to people and capture their imagination. And if we can capture their imagination, then I told Ron, I said, then we can get more and more brothers and sisters registered to vote and build a political electoral machine so we can take over some of these political power seats so we can change the laws." So you can change the laws to make the laws, and you can change the laws to get the laws enforced. You see what I mean? So this is this kind of goal objective movement that has to be done. And this is the police department. This can apply to a lot of other economic frameworks and institutions that go down. This whole debacle of the finance and homes with the flexible mortgage rates back here 80 years ago, etc. That was all because some right-wingers got some politicians to vote in flexible mortgage rates, which automatically creates a false value of homes, houses, and properties. That if a person gets behind, then they can double it, etc. And that means they're projecting the value of that property 30 years from now, 15 years from now. And so properties skyrocketed in terms of their value. That's called avaricious, corporate money-rich, vicious exploitation. And so it fell in, and tens of millions of people's houses went into foreclosure. And the value of those houses fell for a few years and so on, etc. See, we got to get smart. You guys are young. You got to think. I mean, every human being, women, men, etc., you possess the highest form of organized matter, energy, function known to humankind. Every last one of you. And what is that? Wait a minute. What is that? That is the human thinking brain. To be able to measure, check out, investigate, know, and make your ideas and understanding correspond as much as possible correctly to reality, and further move to educate and unify people in these electoral frameworks. You're going to have to move, and we want as many progressive politicians elected as possible. Now, let me listen to me, brothers and sisters. Remember I told you that there were only 50 black folks. Did I tell you in this lecture? When I started, I could count across the United States of America in the middle of the 1960s, in the year 1965. There were only 50 black politicians duly elected to political office of the whole of the United States of America. Then me, I'm mathematical and I'm demographic. You know what I found out? When you take into account all the city council seats of every city in this country, when you take into account of all the county supervisorial seats of every county in this country, legislative seats on the state level, etc., I added up, there are over 500,000 political seats that one could be elected to, and in the middle of the 1960s, now there's only 50 people, including Adam Clayton Powell, was being elected. Now listen to me. That movement of the 1960s moved over, and 15 years later, at the end of 1970, there were 7,000 black folks. Wait a minute. At the end of 1985, almost 14,000 was being elected. And women were way out of range. They began to move in the whole range. I mean, we got all the way up. And then now, in the last 2 decades, the Hispanic and Chicano brothers and sisters, yes, rightfully so. I mean, this is what's got to happen. These son of a guns, these racist dogs, these black people, brown people, women's rights, and young progressive white folks. Don't get yourself wrong. We coalesce with everybody. I don't give a damn whether you was white, black, blue, red, green, yellow, polka dot. If you got one iota,
don't talk to me.
One iota of proper human sense about constitutional democratic civil human rights.
I don't shut up.
Forced and afforded to all peoples, economically, politically, social justice, rise, ecologically, etc., 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 etc. You must make that movement. You're going to have to elect these politicians, and 50% of them may not ever do what you want right. Maybe only 20%, but those 20% is better than just 50. You understand what I'm talking about? And that's what you're making about. You got to feel that and know that and understand that. Now, when I said I'm not a socialist, I also said I'm a constitutional, democratic, community-controlled economist. I believe in greater people's empowerment and people's greater community control of the political institutions that affect our lives. Input and control. You got to get creative with understanding what that means. In some cases, you're going to implement institutionalized levels. Like I implemented a community tutorial program that was an entity in itself in a very poor and low-income community that was valuably needed economically and educationally. You got to be able to do this stuff in these days and times, and you can do it. Because young people just like you was what made our movement what it was. We went to prison, we died, and we struggled and we fought. But yeah, we can do this. You know, I mean, Constitution, Democratic, Community Control of Economic Framework. If it becomes implemented, the average racist form of is going to call it socialism.
One last round of applause for Dr.